Recovery looks different for everyone, but one thing we know is nobody should walk it alone. I'm Dr. Mark Lasko, and this is From Addiction to Recovery, a podcast where real people share real stories about finding strength, building community, and becoming their best version of themselves. I want to welcome you today to our recovery community. The From Addiction to Recovery podcast is a mission of Samaritan Recovery Community. Samaritan has been serving substance use disorder treatment in downtown Nashville for the last 61 years. Today, I am pleased to welcome Jonathan Pursley, Director of Admissions at Samaritan. I hope you enjoy this podcast. To have someone that I already know pretty darn well on the first podcast. So thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
All right. My name is Jonathan Pursley. I am the Director of Admissions for Samaritan Recovery Community. Also, I am a Samaritan alumni. My clean date is May 31st, 2015, which means I have a little over 10 years. I've been with Samaritan since 2020, so a little over 5 years.
Wow. Well, first, congratulations on 10 years
Thanks.
Of recovery. When you hear a title of a podcast like From Addiction to Recovery, what does that mean to you?
I mean, just what it says, from addiction. I mean, I know the person that I was in active addiction, the not so great person that I was, the person that was lost, the person that felt like nobody cared, the person that just needed to do what he needed to do to get his next fix, you know? To recovery means what I have now, because it looks different for everybody. Sometimes in recovery, people might relapse once or twice and have to start over. It doesn't mean they lose what they have. Luckily enough for myself, I have not experienced that. So for me, from addiction to recovery it's where I started versus where I am now. It's not necessarily where I'm going, but it's where I am at the moment.
So addiction is something that doesn't discriminate.
Not at all.
And hits everybody. Mm-hmm. Have you ever experienced a time in life where you've maybe prejudged somebody, then found out, oh my goodness, they do know more about recovery than I would have thought, Absolutely. Or vice versa?
Yeah, the first time I ever went to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, I remember I was at the Out to Lunch bunch, and I walked in with a friend because I think I was in IOP at the time, and it was suggested that you go to meetings. And so I walked in with someone and I sat down and I thought, I don't have anything in common with these people. They're talking about using this, but I don't use that. So I don't have the same problems. So absolutely, when I first got into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I did prejudge because they weren't like me.
Yeah. And Nashville is a very unique place in that we have so many successful musicians that are also in the recovery community. Mm-hmm. That sometimes you might see someone that they don't have any idea what my life is like. And in reality, they've lived some version of your life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all have something in common.
Yeah.
I mean, we all earned our seat in that circle for a reason. I mean, it's called, principles before personalities. Our walks are different, but I can learn something from you and you can learn something from me no matter what our status is, where we are in life. So.
When it comes to the principles, which principle do you think is most important or has been the most impactful in your life to embrace?
Honesty.
Tell me about that.
I was brought up in a great family in Nashville. Like you said, it doesn't discriminate. And so, I went to a private school. It was a religious school. So it was always be honest, tell the truth, all those things. But moving forward as I got older in life, especially in active addiction, I didn't want anybody to know anything. I mean, when you're in active addiction, you think, oh, I'm hiding it. Nobody can tell. I mean, that is definitely not the case and not the truth. But I would never be honest about anything. Somebody could say, oh, well, it's raining today. No, it's not. It's sunny. It was just as simple as that. And just because I just wanted to push back and wanted to argue, really. But, being honest. I mean, especially when you're involved with criminal activity, which that's part of my story as well. Of course, I wasn't honest. I wanted to have an alias. I wanted to have this. I wanted to say, oh, are you on the way? Yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And you don't show up for 2 or 3 hours. So, there was a lot of things as far as the criminal aspect of it was where you didn't want to be honest because at the end of the day, you didn't want to get caught. Which for me, luckily I did, because it changed my life.
I've heard it said before, and I'm interested in what you think about this, that when you're telling lies, the easiest person to convince you're lying is yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, on my drug of choice, when I would stay up for days, that deprivation of sleep, it really affects your mind. So you become delusional, right? Mm-hmm. And so you don't even have to convince yourself. It's just in your mind, it's true. Mm-hmm. I mean, so yeah.
You can convince yourself it's a lie. Everyone else is looking and saying, clearly this guy needs some help.
Clearly.
Like, I don't need anything.
No, I mean, I got a job. I can do that. And as the admissions director, and when I'm assessing people for treatment, I hear that commonly. I don't have a problem, because one of the questions is, well, how long have you had a substance abuse problem? I don't have a problem. I just drink. Okay. I had that the other day, and the guy was like, well, I don't have a problem. And I said, but you're in jail. So you're telling me that you don't have a problem and you're in jail. So, but I was there before, I was that person. So. Yeah.
It's really interesting. You would think that it would be easy to say, when you hit this level, you've hit your rock bottom.
Mm-hmm. And that's not true.
Truth of the matter is, the journey for everybody is different.
It's different.
So what's rock bottom for me, which might just be, wow, my wife thinks less of me. That's my rock bottom. Mm-hmm. But for somebody else, they have to be incarcerated. And for some people, incarceration isn't it either, right, Jonathan?
Right, exactly. I mean, when I was in prison, people were still using heavily in there. I mean, that's unfortunately one of the biggest money makers when they're behind the walls. And I would always say that, this was my rock bottom. I probably said that 4 times before I actually realized, all right, is this really it, or I just need help? And finally, when I just admitted I needed help, there it is.
And that is the bottom, right?
Right.
You have to identify.
Right.
What would you say to somebody who says, well, I mean, of course they can't use drugs in jail or prison, right? Like, they've got guards.
Incorrect. Sometimes the guards are the ones that are bringing it in. I mean,
almost all of them.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, the prison system, the gangs run it mostly. So they have control, and they say, okay, well, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're not going to do. I mean, it's a pretty serious game in there. So.
And you've got family members who are trying to get a substance in.
Absolutely.
Because they enable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Their loved one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I was in there, and we would have visitation, if there was any suspicion of somebody getting something to somebody else, like they had a dry room where they would have to wait for 24 hours so they could use the bathroom to see if there were substances.
And that still didn't stop it.
I know. Sometimes it didn't. Mm-mm.
Wow. Yeah. Well, where there is a will, there is often a way.
There is, for sure.
So you mentioned coming through Samaritan's program. Mm-hmm. How common is that people go through a treatment center and end up working at the place that they got recovery?
I don't necessarily know how common it is. What I can speak for is our facility now. I know for sure there are 3 of us that are on. 2 of us are on the leadership team, and then our kitchen manager also is a former client. I'm trying to think of the other staff. I mean, I think as I've worked here for the 5 years, sometimes it's a little higher and sometimes it's a little lower.
Did thinking of step work, and especially the last step, did that impact your willingness to want to come and give back?
Well, that's funny that you asked that, because when I was sharing my story at the TAMHO conference,
one of the Tennessee Alliance for Mental Health Organizations.
Yes. They had asked me to come and be a presenter, and I was so grateful. It was such a good experience. But one of the things I said is, when COVID happened, I was working for Cracker Barrel, and I had the conversation with my husband at the time, and it was like, do you really want to do that for the rest of your life? And I thought, no, I do not want to be a restaurant manager, because that was the next logical step. And I was like, well, I want to do something where I make a difference. And so when I started at Samaritan, my mindset was to help. As I've grown, as I've matured, as I've realized that I have to give what I have in order to keep it, and with your guidance as well, I serve now. I'm not here to help. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to meet you where you are. How can How can we get you to where you need to be? How can I show you what I have? And I have the unique perspective as well as part of the alumni committee to bring meetings in. I think my next month is January. So I actually get to come in and sit with the clients and share my story, bring in people in my recovery that are important, that have yours clean, let them share their story. So yeah, it's just a unique thing that I get to experience.
And by the way, for those who are listening in online to this podcast, we are not trying to talk people out of working at Cracker Barrel. We love their hash browns. They are phenomenal. It is doing good work as well.
Well, and let me say about Cracker Barrel, they supported me in active addiction. They allowed me to take a break and use FMLA to come to Samaritan, find my recovery. They accepted me back. When I went to prison, they supported me. My coworkers would send me birthday cards. And when I got out, I actually went back to Cracker Barrel and I got my job back. So yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Cracker Barrel out there because they really supported me through the whole thing that I went through. Okay. And I'm a Leo, so it was really kind of hard for me to walk away and to let it go. But this past March, it was my last shift, and I miss it, and I miss the people. But again, shout out to them for supporting me and helping me get to where I am today too. So
if we had thought about it, we could have had some of those hash browns here and enjoying them. We'll maybe do that if we do it again. You mentioned a couple of times now going through incarceration, but also being at Samaritan. So how did that play out for you? And how did that end up helping you get into long-term recovery?
So I was arrested in 2013. For me, I did stop the criminal activity of selling drugs at that point. I didn't stop using. So at that point, it did start changing my life. I just didn't get out of my own way to get into recovery until 2015. When I got arrested, I was facing a pretty big charge, some pretty big time. And so I hired a lawyer because I thought, well, the public defender's given me the worst case scenario, so might as well hire a lawyer to see if there's anything different. And so we fought it for about 2 years. And finally, I want to say that, yes, I came to Samaritan at first. My goal was to have a different sentence. How is this going to look in the court? But when I got here and when I started working the steps, my mind changed. It was, here you are making changes regardless of what's going to happen, because part of being in recovery is not knowing. Yeah. Especially in early recovery, not knowing anything. How's your family going to do this? How are you going to feel about this? What are you going to like? What are your kids going to think? There's so many variables, what ifs. And so I embraced early on living in the not knowing part of it because I remained teachable and I could grow. So while I was here, probably about 3 weeks in, I did get a phone call from my lawyer, and they were saying, well, I think they're ready to see you so we can go ahead and sign your sentence. And I was like, okay. So I ended up getting to go to TL, and then I got the phone call of, hey.
What is TL?
Transitional Living. It's our program. We have the inpatient residential program, and then the next step is transitional living. And I actually did both programs. And back then it was a 90-day program. So you
did the 30-day program, traditional 28, 30-day rehab. And then you went into a longer program.
Right, the transitional living program.
And it sounds like you started with the idea, hey, this is going to look good. And then as you got into it, you're like, oh, no, I need this.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that fair to say?
No, that is 1,000% accurate. So when I got into the transitional living program, I got that, some people would say dreaded phone call. I got that life-changing phone call to say, okay, well, they've decided that if you sign a 10 years at 30% plea deal, then they'll drop the school zone enhancement off your charge because that's an automatic 12 years at 100%. So I did get something from coming to treatment because I trusted my higher power, and it worked out where that full sentence was dropped. So I was grateful for that. And I will say, I went up there to sign the papers and all that stuff. And I looked at the judge and I was like, hey, I'm in this program. I graduate November this and this. I was like, I would really like to finish it. And so she said, well, I can give you 30 days. And I was like, if that's the best and what you got to offer, that's fine. I mean, I'll take that. So I ended up staying at Transitional Living probably a couple more weeks after I got back, and then I was discharged to come home and spend some time with my family. And when I got up there to turn myself in, the jail had no paperwork on me. So I was like, okay. And I said to the intercom, I was like, what am I supposed to do now? And they were like, well, just call your lawyer. So the fun thing was that I got in trouble in Blount County, which is right by Gatlinburg. So we got to go and spend the night in Gatlinburg, just waiting to hear from the lawyer. And I never heard from my lawyer. So I went back, and I got to come back and actually finish the TL program.
Wow.
So that was, at the time, everybody was like, I've never heard of that happening. I was like, well, it did, because we went up there and I did what I was supposed to do, and they didn't have anything set in place for me to go into jail. So that was a very interesting experience.
Yeah, I would say. Mm-hmm. So then you ended up doing time, finishing that. When you came out, what was your life like, and what was recovery like for you? So I did 28 months of my 10-year sentence in county jail and then in Tennessee Department of Corrections. When you go through classification, my experience is you have to get all kinds of physical stuff, get your DNA on file with the state, take this test of where you are intellectually, and then from all this stuff, they'll make a suggestion of what programs they would like for you to take while you're in there. And so two of the programs the only two were pro-social life skills, and then the therapeutic community, TCOM, which is the drug program. So I got to do both of those programs. So, I mean, prison is what it is. You can choose to do what you do. You can choose to be in gangs. You can choose to be in the drug scene. There's so many things you can do. For me, by choosing those things, you're putting yourself in danger, because what if you don't have what it needs to pay for whatever drugs you decided to do? So I stayed away from all that. I did go to Narcotics Anonymous meetings while I was in there. In the therapeutic community program, it was 9 months. I actually was transferred to a facility in Clifton, Tennessee that was a minimum security facility, where I would go out during the day and work in like the city of Savannah, or work in surrounding churches to mow grass, pick up trash, help clean up the city. So I look at it as I gave back to the community, because for so many years I was taking from the community. And then at nighttime, I would do that therapeutic community program, which is 3 months. Every phase is 3 months. And by the time I got to the end of the second phase, I was a mentor in the community. But it was because I decided I'm not doing drugs. I'm not using no matter what. That's not what I want to do with my life. And so by making that choice, I stuck with what I wanted to stick with. I had a sponsor the whole time as well. I worked. That's really good. I called my sponsor twice a week. I worked the steps. My sponsor would send in step work through the mail. I would work it, send it back, and then we would go over it. But I was in a different headspace, because, being in prison, it was just a structured environment versus working the steps and going to meetings when you're not in prison, because the world is not structured. Yeah. So when I got out of prison, my recovery looked different. I went to a program in Nashville called Restoration House. That's where I paroled out to. But I didn't rework, because I worked the first 9 steps while I was incarcerated with my sponsor. But when I got out, because I was in a different space, I was like, you know what? While I don't want to redo everything, let's go back and let's update where I am now versus where I was 2 years ago when I did step 1, when I was in jail. So coming out, recovery was, it sounds like, just business as usual. You were already in recovery, and so it was just keep doing what you're doing in a less structured, I think you said, environment. Yeah, right. A least restrictive environment, as they would say. Yeah. So, and it was because I made that choice. I made that choice that, you know what, I'm done with this. In active addiction, I was always what they would call a flaky guy. Would never keep my word. But when I came here and I was changing how I thought about life, I thought,
I'm not being that person anymore. If I'm going to say something, I'm going to do it or do it to the best of my ability.
Which is why that honesty principle
Correct.
is so true with you.
Yes. I really resonated with that because I wanted to be a person of my word. I wanted to be that person you could count on, the person that showed up for his friends, the person that showed up for his family. And I've stuck to that.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So recovery came to you, it sounds like, in steps and in stages, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that you're, 10 years in to living into long-term recovery, which I'm going to take a leap of faith and say that 9 years ago, you couldn't have imagined what 10 years of recovery time looks like.
5 years ago, I couldn't imagine what this looked like because, the people that have worked the program, that have been around forever, they'll always say, at 5 years, life just hits different. Things just make sense. And I don't know what it was, but it was true. At 5 years, it was like, wow. It was just different. And then it was time for me to do something different with my life. And I chose to come back to where it all started for me.
So what does recovery look like for you today as you're living in recovery, but you also are not only working in recovery, you have a team of people who work for you to help you achieve goals, which
Absolutely.
Ultimately is long-term recovery for clients. So tell me a little about that.
Right. So my recovery today actually looks a lot different even than it did when I started here. I did all the meetings, went to the 90 and 90, and I believe while I was at Restoration House, for the 6 months I was there, I probably did 180 meetings or 200 meetings the whole time I was there, which that's what I needed because, I was in the free world after being incarcerated for so long. But now my recovery is different. I work the steps. I created a fellowship. I call them my chosen family now. We all have years in recovery. So we get together every week. I may not go to meetings like I do anymore. And I don't go to meetings like I do anymore, but I have that fellowship. I have those people that I talk to every day because that's the important part.
Well, you built your own meeting.
Right. Yeah. And we'll say that all the time. We'll sit on the patio around the fire table. Okay, well, let's all check in. That's a meeting, So, it just looks a lot different, but also something different that I've done as well is I've introduced therapy into my community, into my recovery, which has been eye-opening because I can do the steps because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a very step, but therapy is not that.
It's not.
Therapy is up and down, sideways. And so that has been interesting to learn what is that like for me because it's shifted from substance abuse to other things in my life. So it does look a lot different today. And I'm also fortunate to have a team of people here at Samaritan. And they would tell you all, so it's not a secret, they're all in recovery as well. So I get to be around them. We get to coach each other. What does this look like today? Talking through situations, helping clients. I think one of my favorite things that they say is they just enjoy that sit down face to face when they're updating things, doing the paperwork and getting the clients up into the community.
Do you have any sense of how many people you're able to personally witness getting into recovery through your work on a monthly basis? Do you have
I'm trying to remember the number of people that we admitted last year. It was over 400, wasn't it?
For the whole year?
For 1,100.
1,100. Yeah.
That's a lot.
So I guess if you break that down, 80 or 90 people a month.
Especially, because it's not...
But those are the people that admit to our program. You also are helping people that come that can't admit, don't have a bed that you're getting somewhere else.
Right, because that I pride our team on if we can't help them here, we try to help them get in somewhere else and use our referral sources. So, oh my gosh.
It might be double that number.
Yeah. And because as much as I like to have a boundary and say, okay, well, it's 5:00, it's time to go home, recovery never stops. I have social media. I have people reach out all the time. So or new people that come to our chosen family group and stuff so it's just ingrained in who I am. Like I live all those principles in my life. So I don't think I could put a number on that because it's just a lot of people. And also I've touched somebody. Well, who is that person touched? And then who is that person touched? How many more people have they touched? So there's really no telling. It's a lot.
I guess that's one of the beautiful things about the 12-step program, and maybe the thing that makes it the most successful, which is if you can impact somebody else, they can impact somebody else, they can impact something.
Absolutely.
Just spreads and spreads.
It is.
And it's hard to believe that it's been going as long as it has. No funding, no direct oversight, and yet terribly successful.
It's still there.
Yeah.
No, it's still there no matter what happens. One thing, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. They're the grandfather program of everything, all the steps for all the other programs. But the thing that I think that drew me to Narcotics Anonymous the most was the fellowship aspect, was the we aspect, because in addiction, I was isolated. Like, even though I might have been around people, I still felt isolated because of what was in my mind. And when I got involved, when I did service work, when I stepped outside of myself to become selfless, that all changed because I had a community. I had people that loved me no matter what headspace I was in that day. And so it allows me today to love others. I've told you before, it's hard to take compliments sometimes about myself, even 10 years in. And sometimes it's even hard for me to hear somebody else, hey, I love you, thank you. But I've told people that. I've helped people understand that. So, it's an ongoing process because I had to learn early on, like, there are many, many different types of love. And I didn't, for me growing up, it was I got my family love, then I got romantic love, and that was it. But there are so many more things out there, as far as love is concerned.
So community is obviously extremely important. And I want to talk about what role you think community plays in recovery. You might notice I welcomed you to the recovery community,
right?
Because that's
exactly
what we are. But one other thing I wanted to point out before we get to community, you mentioned that you had to go from a point of selfishness to selflessness. And I think it's really almost ironic or a paradox of sorts that when you become selfless, you find out then you're also going from being powerless to powerful. And when you let go of looking at yourself, you find then you get the things that you might have wanted all along.
Yeah, and I guess you could say that. I still am powerless over some things in my life. Am I powerful? Yeah, I become a powerful person, but it's because of the work I've done. And if you know me, but for those of you out there that don't, I am a very humble person. Like, I can tell you I'm a powerful person, and I am because of what I've gone through, the strength that I have in my life today. And that's what I mean. It's not the arrogant, conceited type of powerful that people would think of that word. But yes, I am a powerful person, confident person today. Absolutely.
So let's go to the community.
Absolutely.
What role do you think community plays? Obviously, it's part of our name at
Right.
Samaritan Recovery Community, so we think it's important.
It's definitely important.
What role do you see community playing? And especially for those who might be listening to this podcast, never met either one of us, what role do they play in helping build a recovery community?
I mean, for the people out there that are listening, community is as important as honesty is in my recovery. Again, because I said I would not be where I am today without a community of people, and the community looked different. My community when I got out of prison was different than the community that I had at Cracker Barrel when I was there. That's different than the community I have in my personal life today, that I have in my work life, because community is part of our name, and it's important when our clients complete our program that they still understand that they're not alone. Because as much as we would love to believe after the small time we're in inpatient, we still have that self-doubt there. But a community helps with that self-doubt. And if you're out there listening, I mean, you're important in our community today because you're out there listening. Yeah. You're listening to what we have to say. You're listening to our experiences, our strengths, and hopefully it touches something in you that maybe if you know a loved one that's struggling or somebody else that's struggling, you could say, hey, there's a place that has great community. There's a place that's awesome. that I would 1,000% recommend to anybody and put up against any other program in this nation, Samaritan Recovery Community, because we know that they're going to help you. We know that it's about the next step just as much as it is about here and now. And we have case managers here with discharge planning with the counselors, because we want our clients to be set up for success when they leave here. That's important to me, because even though I had to go to prison when I left here, I was still set up for success because I had the tools that I needed to implement into my life by making that choice to stay clean.
I think there are probably people who might hear this and be surprised that on your way to incarceration, you can feel like you're set up for success.
Absolutely. No, yeah. Well, and I had that, even though it was a short 4 months before I turned myself in, I got to repair some relationships with friends, some relationships with family. So going into that, yes, I was set up for success because I have the support of my loved ones. A lot of people have no visitation when they're in. I mean, I was lucky enough to, one of the facilities I was at was in Hartsville, Tennessee, and my parents came up and visited me every weekend. Every weekend I had somebody come with them or them. And I mean, that...
You were blessed.
Very,
very blessed.
Very much so. Very much so. So, yeah.
I also like the idea of helping to define who is the community, because most people think that the recovery community is people who are all in recovery. Mm-mm. But it's more than that, isn't it?
No, absolutely. Well, just like when we have event sponsors, when we're doing the Burnt Bridges for our alumni, we do have sponsors. I mean, those people are helping our community.
That's right.
They're helping the Samaritan community, but they're also helping the community as a whole, because we are part of the community.
Yeah, and I would say that anyone who is listening in and interested or even just curious about it, you're part of the community now. Mm-hmm. So get involved and try to help out. Yeah,
and something that we've gotten to over the past couple of years that we didn't have my first 3 years is volunteers. Mm-hmm. People in the community that volunteer to put gift baskets together for our new folks in transitional living, or to come on the facility and help facilitate an art class, or whatever their specialty is, working in our medical records room that we've had. I mean, we've had a lot of volunteers that, 3 years prior we didn't have. And so I get that, again, that's part of the community. I remember the gentleman, Jason, that was from Vanderbilt. They started an organization on campus.
That's right.
For that actually has spread to other campuses across the United States. So again, he came to volunteer, and he worked here for a little bit, and he spread out into communities all over the United States.
That's 100% accurate, and that's why it's so important for us to remember with community. It takes an entire community. Mm-hmm. What was the old saying? It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, it takes a village.
It takes a community to deal with something like addiction. Mm-hmm. And if you only are expecting the people, the 12 steppers, they've got it. No, they can't do it on their own. Mm-hmm. They're part of a community, and they need a community that can support them and help fund treatment centers. We are one of, I don't know how many, tens of thousands of addiction centers in the country. Mm-hmm. But, communities either need more beds or better funded programs so they can fill the beds.
Or both.
Or both. Yeah, very good point.
Definitely both, yeah.
So the community is really, I agree, it's so very important, and it's misunderstood by a lot of people.
No, for sure. For sure it is. Yes, misunderstood, because there's a stigma. And it's changed a lot over the years, but again, there's a stigma there because, and even with mental health, because as you know, our facility is co-occurring, and myself, I have a mental health diagnosis that I have to take care of. And one of my things is, if I'm not taking care of my mental health, I'm working on a relapse. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm not taking care of that, then I'm just going to get the efforts and just go on and do what I need to do. So yes, so definitely a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of maybe sometimes not wanting to understand, because sometimes if it's left unsaid, you don't have to deal with it. Or if it's not in front of you, you don't have to deal with it.
I know that in my 20 years of working in this field, I often can see warning signs that a relapse is coming in. Mm-hmm. Your principle that you said is most important to you is probably the biggest one to me. Mm-hmm. if someone's not being honest, they're headed for a relapse.
No, for sure. I would say that. And being a sponsor and watching guys relapse, yeah, for sure. Because a sponsor helps you work through the 12 steps. And if you're not being honest with your sponsor, because that's the one person they suggest you tell everything to. And my sponsor knows everything about me. And if I'm not honest with that person, then I'm not being honest with myself, because I'm not giving what I can give to working those steps, or in the past giving what I could have given to work those steps. So that's absolutely true.
Well, today you are a 10-year example of someone who can literally go from addiction to recovery.
You're exactly
and I'm
right.
so grateful you took the time to sit down and spend some time talking and sharing with whoever is choosing to listen into this podcast.
Well, I appreciate you having me. This is just a quick walk down the hallway, but I am grateful that I got to be the first, because again, like Samaritan is a very special place to me. It started the road to give me my life back, and now I get to do what I love with people that I love, and with a leadership that supports, challenges, and wants the best for what our clients need, and our clients in general. So thank you.
Well, thanks for being our guest. Thank you to each who have joined us. Again, the From Addiction to Recovery podcast is a mission of Samaritan Recovery Community. Samaritan Recovery Community is a not-for-profit substance use disorder treatment in Nashville, Tennessee. If you or a loved one needs any treatment, please visit our website at samctr.org, and you'll get a chance to speak to either Jonathan or a member of his team.
Absolutely.
All right. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.